Will money alone provide you with a rewarding retirement? There are actually five areas, five separate questions that we deal with our clients that go well beyond the money to help put them in a position where they could fully enjoy the next chapter of life. In this video, I will share some of those conversations I have with my clients. But before we get to that, subscribe to our channel and click the notifications bell so you're alerted to when we post new videos. I recently had a conversation with a longtime client of mine. She's about to retire from a major organization, and the planning indicated clearly that she had enough money to pursue her retirement goals. But the conversation we had centered around something different than money. And it was about how she was going to get the most out of retirement and what she was going to do for the rest of her life. Now, as a business owner, and when I talk to other business owners, we've built our baby, our business. And when we go to retire, it's really difficult because our minds have been on our businesses 24/7. And I shared this mindset with this client I was just referring to, and I said, in a way, I know the organization you've been working for, and you too, even though you're not a business owner, you attended to the business of the business, even as an employee, in such a way that it was like being a business owner, 24/7, thinking about it all the time, working many, many hours during the day. And you've worked for many years to build that business. Now that you give that up, what are you going to do? And it was interesting because when we moved into this conversation, she said, that is what is keeping me up at night. I'm not sure what's going to fill my days other than just taking care of the grandkids. But there has to be more, and we know that. In the final chapter of my book, Don't Outlive Your Money in Retirement, I share these five areas, and that's what I want to talk about with you. The first and most important question really is, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I've got a good friend of mine. He owned a business that he just retired from just the past couple of years, and he doesn't have family. He spent so much time building this very successful business, and that is what defined him. And now that he's moving into this next chapter of life, he doesn't have a lot to fill that time and is really searching and seeking for something that could provide him with some of that fulfillment, that give him some of that respect that he's looking for, and share his knowledge and wisdom with others, and really fill out his life with something other than just going to breakfast, reading books, and just going from one place to the other. It's got to be more than that. The best definition of retirement is, that I've heard from a number of my clients, I don't really know how, when I was working, how I had enough time to work. Because now that they're retired, they got so much stuff to do. They got the grandkids, they got hobbies, they got travel when we can travel. They've really got a fulfilling, full calendar, full agenda of things to do that is really making them truly enjoy their retirement journey. And that is probably the first and most important question you need to deal with, which is, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? The second question that I get from clients is, given that some of our kids have moved to areas away from where we reside, do I move to be closer to the kids and, more importantly, the grandkids? And I have a couple of stories that I could share with you with regards to clients who moved to kids. I have one client who moved to California from the Boston area, and it's worked out beautifully. The family actually needed her around. She's been there for a number of years now. Really reinforced that relationship, has a rewarding time with them. It's worked out marvelously. On the other hand, I have a client who was also in the Boston area who moved up to Maine to be with the kids and the grandkids. Unfortunately, in this scenario, those kids ended up having to move somewhere else because of a job change, taking them and the grandkids, leaving my clients who had just moved up there. And now they were in a position, she had a health situation, they couldn't move. All of their friends were back in the Boston area. They're now up in Maine. It didn't work out for them. So you really have to weigh the pluses and the minuses, what risks you're willing to take when it comes to moving to be closer to the kids and the grandkids. There are numbers of other options you could choose. You could buy a condo that you might want to spend some time in. I've got a client in Florida who does that up in Atlanta to be closer to the kids and the grandkids and flies up when they need to be and spends a couple weeks at a time. But just be very cautious about uprooting your life to be with the kids and the grandkids, because it may or may not have the outcome that you desire. The third conversation that we have with clients, and it's more about my observing interactions and the body language sometimes than it is posed as a question. But it's what happens now that we're both in the house. I mean, certainly we've experienced this with the COVID situation where we're 24/7 now, and that may not be what we're all intended to do, which is just to be in that house together all the time. So I have a couple clients of mine who are both in their 70s, and they're both about to retire. And I asked them, what they were thinking about looking forward. And his comment to me was, and I just referred to it, in this video in the very first question, which was he wasn't sure what he was going to do the rest of his life. He didn't know how much golf he could play. So he was concerned about that on his level. And when I turned to her and asked her what her concern was looking forward, she said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with him. He's going to be home all the time. We're both retired now. I don't know that I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for lunch, okay? Not all of this together. So it's really important before you go to retire to sit down with your partner and to identify what the roles are, what the boundaries are, identify what your own lives independently are. There are times you'll come together, there'll be times that you'll separate, but whatever it is that works for you, you need to deal with it up front because it is a landscape that is changing and it can impact a relationship. So you need to have these conversations in advance of your retirement so that you all know exactly what to expect and what the journey will be. Now, the fourth conversation has to deal with the actual transition itself. And let's assume for a moment that we've done the planning and the numbers indicate that you have the money to pursue your goals. So let me illustrate this with a story that I shared in one of my previous books about a woman who had worked for an insurance company for almost 40 years. And she had come in to see if she could retire now that she was eligible to maximize her pension. And we did the planning, and it was clear that the numbers supported, what she wished to do in retirement. And certainly with no guarantees for any future performance, we recognized that we had to stay on top of the planning, make the adjustments to it, but it looked like she was on track to pursue those goals. And about a month after we completed the planning, she came back into my office, and she was an emotional wreck. And I asked her what was going on. And she says, this insurance company has been my second home. It's the reason I get up in the morning, the reason I have breakfast, a place to go to. a place to talk to my colleagues about personal things. I, in addition to that, I've built a whole division of this insurance company. I'm respected for what I do. I contribute. I'm a part of a growing organization. It's a part of who I am. And when I go to retire, I lose all of that. And the recognition was, and it's important, that the workplace is much more than just a paycheck. So, dealing with the emotions of the transition itself into this new chapter is really important. And I really highly recommend that talking this out with a colleague, a friend, your partner, someone who's already retired, to help you understand what you're about to navigate, what new in your life is going to come about, and what the expectations will be. It's as important as the planning and the money in terms of making the transition a success. And it may take 6 months, 2 years, or more to figure out exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to make this into something that you truly, truly enjoy. But you really have to understand that it is as much about the emotions of retiring as it is about the money. The final conversation that I have, and it's really rewarding for me to hear back from my clients how they feel that the whole planning process itself has helped them to understand how and when they can retire and what they will do in this next chapter of life. And oftentimes we think about the value of planning in terms of, what return do I need to get on my money? When do I take Social Security? Where do I get the money from? How do I reduce taxes? All those things we've talked about. And all those things I have identified in the book. But sometimes there's a particular story that gives real value to the whole process of planning. And I had a longtime client, and they've now been retired for about 20 years and pursuing a wonderful retirement. But most recently, she needed some stem cell therapy for a health issue of hers. And his comment to me when we were talking about that was, he was pleased that the planning process gave him the opportunity to see that the expenditure of this money was not going to impact the way that they lived their life. That he didn't have to make a choice between her health and their retirement. And it was the planning, the underlying assumptions that we did, that we had the original plan and now we have something new. We changed some of the assumptions. We put in now the expenditure of the money. And now he felt free to know that he could spend the money to take care of her and still understand, based on the assumptions, that he could continue to pursue his and her retirement goals. So the value of the planning oftentimes goes well beyond just pursuing the things we think we're going to pursue. Life sometimes throws us curveballs, and the planning can help us understand what we can and cannot do in the future. And going back to the plan on a consistent basis, which I also talked about in previous chapters in the book, where every 6 months or every year you review those assumptions. And if life changes, you have to make assumptions that will change to the plan to see where you are and whether or not you're still on track. To me, and for many of my clients, the conversation is much more about the planning than it is about the money. And that's what truly differentiates what we do with our clients versus what many other financial advisors do, which is to just focus on the money. I believe it brings a much more rewarding relationship for me and with my clients. I certainly hope you've enjoyed this journey through my book, Don't Outlive Your Money in Retirement, 7 Key Steps. And if you're interested in finding out whether or not you're on track, make sure that you click on our quiz to see if you are ready. Thanks for watching, and I truly hope you enjoy the retirement journey.